Hello, my name is Kristen and I am the Outdoor Education Coordinator at Camp Mac. When I'm not at camp, I volunteer with a raptor rehabilitation center called Soarin' Hawk. I'm here today at the Soarin' Hawk facility in Fort Wayne with some of our animal ambassadors. Today I'm going to talk about and show all of you a couple of our raptors that you might just see around your area at home. But first, we need to talk about what a raptor is. Raptor is a term currently used by many to describe birds of prey. Birds of prey include eagles, hawks, falcons, owls, and vultures. Northern Indiana typically has 8 species of falcons and 3 species of owls at any given time. Those are joined by birds like bald eagles and vultures during the migratory seasons. Today we'll talk about 2 of our owls and 1 of our hawks. Well, what makes raptors special? They have specialized adaptations, feet with talons and beaks, highly developed vision and hearing, and exceptional flight capabilities, all of which help raptors find and capture prey. Additionally, raptors are designed to quickly and efficiently process their diets. Let's take a look at our first bird of prey and delve more into that. I am here at Soarin' Hawk Raptor Rehabilitation with our first bird. This is Puck. Puck is an eastern screech owl. Eastern screech owls can be found all across the eastern half of the country, right? Oh, you want to add something? Okay. They come in 2 color patterns we call morphs, red face and gray face. Puck here is a gray face eastern screech owl. Screech owls weigh about 5 ounces, or about what a standard bar of soap weighs. Something that's really cool about them is that they can beat their wings 5 times a second. That's pretty fast. They can definitely fly pretty fast, but sometimes to escape predators, they might just sit on a branch and sway to look like another branch moving in the wind, or they'll slump over and play dead. Screech owls live in tree cavities during the day, and they hunt for food at night. The word for that is nocturnal. Screech owls eat a variety of foods and will eat mice, small rats, voles, chicks, frogs, grasshoppers, insects, mealworms, small snakes even. Basically anything smaller than them. You'll find screech owls in the cavities of all types of trees. One way to attract them is to put up a nest box if you don't have any trees with holes. Screech owls will often reuse the same nesting location for years with their mate. Males attract females by keeping several tree cavities in their territories stocked up with food, like a pantry. They also have an elaborate courtship ritual. Once a female's been lured in by the food, the male will approach her, calling from different branches until they're close. So even though they're called screech owls, they don't really screech. You might have heard his little soft whinny sound. That's more common. After calling out to her, the male will bob and swivel his head and bob his entire body, even slowly winking one eye. If she accepts him, she moves close, and they'll touch bills and preen each other, meaning they'll straighten and clean each other's feathers. Pairs will mate for life, but will accept a new mate if one of them dies. When eggs are laid, the female does most of the incubating, while the male does most of the hunting. Raptors have some unique characteristics we'll talk about as we go through each bird. One thing that is unique to some types of owls like Puck here is his ear tufts. They aren't actually his ears. His ears are little holes on the side of his head. These little tufts of feathers actually indicate how the bird is feeling. When his tufts are up, he's generally pretty relaxed. When they get down, it's a little more aggressive of a feeling. So he's doing pretty okay right now. Keeps swiveling his head around to look at different things, but he's pretty used to this. The feathers of owls are different from other birds of prey. The edges of the feathers are actually serrated, meaning they aren't smooth, but they're actually like pretty jagged. Let's see if we can get a close-up here. Probably kind of hard to see. But the jaggedness of the feathers allows them to fly quietly through the air. It has to do with the physics of air turbulence, basically. If you've ever whooshed a feather through the air, like waved one through the air, and it made that whoosh sound, you probably were not dealing with an owl feather. Because again, owl feathers are perfectly silent. As you can see, owls have big eyes, and that allows them to see prey at great distances. When prey is spotted, the owl will dive quickly and seize it in its talons. The screech owl uses its talons to strangle prey. Small prey might be swallowed whole, but larger prey is going to be torn into pieces with their beaks. Raptor stomach juices can't dissolve bones, fur, feathers, or teeth. If those types of things got in their intestines and splintered, the owl could die. Instead, all of those things get stuck in a chamber of the owl's stomach called the gizzard. About once or twice a day, the owl's stomach contracts, squeezing all the liquid, soupy food, all the good stuff into the intestines, and then the owl will spit up the leftover fur, bones, feathers, and teeth in a clean, rounded chunk called a pellet. People often dissect these pellets to see what food the owl was eating. What have you been eating lately? He's had a lot of mice lately. Their love of small mice can actually cause problems for them, because we as humans often chuck food scraps out of the car while we're driving, even if it's just an apple core. And that apple core could attract mice, and those mice then attract screech owls. And those screech owls want to eat those mice, but when the screech owls are that close to the road, they can easily be hit by a car. Like many of our other birds here at Soarin' Hawk, Puck came to us after being hit by a car. So one way that you guys can help these little guys survive is by being mindful of where you put your garbage. So let's all agree to throw our garbage into garbage cans and not on the side of the road. What do you think, Puck? Anything you want to say? All right, let's take a look at our next raptor. This beauty is a barred owl named Mr. Peabody, who is another one of the animal ambassadors here at Soarin' Hawk Raptor Rehabilitation. We're pretty sure he's a boy bird because he's pretty small, at right around 1.5 pounds. Female birds are usually 30% larger than males. Peabody may not look all that big, but his wingspan is 3 to 4 feet. Barred owls are nocturnal, though they mostly hunt in the first few hours of the night. They roost in branches next to the trunk of a tree or in tree cavities, kind of like screech owls do. They tend to prefer forests, wooded swamps, or woodlands near waterways. Barred owls are opportunistic hunters and can sometimes be seen hunting before dark, typically on dark or cloudy days. A barred owl will use a perch from where it dives upon its prey. Its favorite foods are meadow voles, followed by shrews and deer mice. Other mammals include rats, squirrels, young rabbits, bats, possums, and weasels. They will sometimes eat small birds, fish, turtles, frogs, snakes, lizards, crayfish, beetles, and even grasshoppers. Let's talk about some of their special features. Owl necks are actually longer and skinnier than they look. The long, thick feathers that cover their necks make it look short and fat. Owls can twist their necks to turn their heads about 270 degrees around, about 3/4 of a full circle, without moving their shoulders. Can you show them how you can do that? No? Something's got you distracted up in the corner there. I think it's because the ceiling's a little shiny. Now, Peabody was found by Fort Wayne Animal Care and Control in 2010 after being hit by a car. He has very poor vision and as such would not survive in the wild. So he's been one of the ambassador birds here for the last decade. The most common cause of these birds needing rehabilitation is being hit by a car. If you ever see one on the side of the road, you can always call us and we'll come and get it. Now, vision is very important for the survival of owls. The eyes of owls are at least 35 to as much as 100 times more sensitive to dim light as the eyes of humans. Roughly, this means that an owl can see everything perfectly across a football field with only the light of a single candle. If we were to hold up a newspaper about 20 feet away, we might be able to read the headline. Owls would be able to read every word of the articles. I mean, assuming they could read, of course. Owls have a limited ability to see color. Also, owls don't have typical eyeballs. Their eyes are actually long and shaped more like a tube. Owl eyes can't turn in their sockets because of the shape. That's why they turn their heads to look around. So whatever direction his head is facing is where he's looking. And currently that is up in the corner of the room. You want to look at the camera for us, sweetie? I guess not. You guys aren't as interesting. But as you can see, owl eyes are huge. If humans had eyes proportional to the eyes of an owl, They would be as big as softballs and weigh 2 pounds. I love Peabody's eyes because they're so dark. It's like he's staring into your soul. All raptors have a third eyelid called a nictitating membrane. So that's your vocab word for today, nictitating membrane. At the instant a raptor's feet touch its prey, this membrane covers the eye and protects it from possible damage from a thrashing victim. Because of Peabody's injuries, he sometimes blinks slowly enough that you can see his nictitating membrane. So it'd be nice if he actually looked at the camera, but let's see if you can catch it when he blinks. They don't blink as often as we do. Oh, did you see it? Yeah, pretty cool. Now, owl hearing is highly developed and is an important skill for owls as a means for locating food. Owls can hear sounds 10 times fainter than humans can detect. Large ear openings surrounded by deep, soft feathers help funnel the sounds to each ear. You can see how Peabody's face is kind of shaped like a satellite dish. See that nice, beautiful shape? That helps funnel sounds right into those ear holes at the edges of the disc. You yourselves at home can see how well this works by taking your hands and cupping them behind your ears. It helps amplify the sound and helps funnel sound into your ear holes. An owl's ear holes are placed asymmetrically. One actually points more up and one points more down, which helps to determine which direction sounds are coming from. Their hearing is so good that they can hear prey scratching beneath 3 feet of snow from hundreds of feet away. Now, barred owls are very common in northern Indiana, and they have a very distinctive sound that you'll likely hear just after dark. Let's see if Peabody will respond to me as I try to mimic his call. Ooh, 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 ooh. Well, that got his attention. Do you want to respond? Ooh, 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 ooh. I guess not today. All right, let's take a look at our last bird. Our last Soarin' Hawk ambassador bird today is a red-tailed hawk named Ruby. I'm not able to hold her today because she just underwent coping, which is where her beak and talons are trimmed. Because she doesn't live in the wild, they don't wear down as much, so we have to help our birds out with that. We know Ruby is a female because of her size. She's just over 3 pounds and has a wingspan of 4 to 5 feet. Red-tailed hawks can fly 20 to 40 miles per hour and up to 120 miles per hour when diving for prey. They live in forests and fields, and you'll often see them high up in branches alongside major highways and on telephone poles scanning for prey. They are one of the most common birds of prey in Indiana. I personally see these guys all the time when driving. Red-tailed hawks are opportunistic feeders with a diet consisting mainly of small mammals. Prey will vary, but they mostly eat rodents. In addition to rats and mice, they'll eat gophers, chipmunks, squirrels, pigeons, waterfowl, smaller raptors, reptiles, fish, insects, and earthworms. They'll even go after small dogs and cats, though they don't really like to eat them. Ruby is one of the few ambassador birds that we know her age. Red-tailed hawks don't get their red tail until they're 2 years old, and Ruby came to us with the characteristic brown juvenile tail. We estimate that she was born in the spring of 2006. Ruby is also rare in that she has a couple of white tail feathers instead of the typical red. Feet are the primary weapons of death and protection for raptors. Their large and powerful feet can exert enough pressure to puncture thick skin, often crushing and killing prey instantly. When I am holding her, even with my thick gloves on, if Ruby decided to clamp down, I would have a very large bruise, and she might even make me bleed. Once a raptor catches onto something, the bird generally will not release it until the prey stops moving. Owls have 2 forward-facing talons and 2 back-facing. All other raptors, like our hawk Ruby, have 3 forward and 1 back. While owls have feathers on their feet all the way down to their toes, hawks do not. One reason these birds often get hit by cars is because they'll eat dead animals on the side of the road. We don't know what caused Ruby's injuries that made her non-releasable, but we do know she's had a lot of injuries and is almost completely blind. Last fall, she underwent surgery to help with her eyesight, but it's still very poor, so that is why she swivels her head a lot and is doing a bad job of looking at the camera. Another thing that is special about hawks is that they can see colors as well as the ultraviolet range. This means that hawks can make out the trails of urine that rodents leave as they run along the ground. Like neon dinner signs, these bright paths may highlight the way to a meal. Before we go, I'd like to talk about why raptors are important. As previously stated, they eat rodents that could destroy fields of crops. If raptor prey such as mice, rats, and prairie dogs become too abundant, they can not only damage crops, but also transmit diseases to humans, livestock, and our pets. Like canaries in a coal mine that indicate poisonous air quality for miners, raptor populations provide the first indication that pesticides are entering the food chain. When raptors are not surviving well in a habitat, it's a strong indication that something could be negatively affecting the environment. We definitely want to see raptors around, because then we know our environment is healthy. Well, I know I said we were only going to talk about 3 birds of prey. I had to spend a couple of minutes talking about this new ambassador bird who I really love. This guy is a turkey vulture. Because he's new and undergoing training, he doesn't have a name yet and isn't ready to be held on a glove. Turkey vultures are often misunderstood creatures, so I wanted to share a bit about them. Unlike many raptors, turkey vultures are relatively social and often feed, fly, or roost in large flocks. A group of vultures is called a committee, venue, or volt. In flight, a flock of vultures is called a kettle, and when the birds are feeding together at a carcass, the group is called a wake. Turkey vultures are almost exclusively scavengers. It's a myth that turkey vultures will circle dying animals waiting to feed. These birds will soar on thermal air currents while they look for food, but they cannot sense when an animal is dying. When they locate a carcass by smell, sight, or the sound of other birds feeding, they approach it quickly before other predators can find it. Despite how big these guys are, they can swoop up to 60 miles per hour. Bird skeletons are lightweight yet strong. The bones of birds are filled with air spaces, forming a honeycombed interior. The bones of a bird weigh up to 30% less than the bones of a comparable mammal. Female birds store calcium in the hollow air spaces of several different bones, which they can use later to produce eggshells. Because vultures have weak feet and legs, they do not carry prey back to their chicks. Instead, they will gorge at a carcass and regurgitate food from their crop to feed their young. When threatened, vultures vomit to lighten their body weight so they can escape more easily into flight. Vomiting also serves as a defense mechanism to deter predators that may be threatening the birds. And trust me, it smells awful. That's why we try not to scare them here. Vultures lack a voice box and are nearly silent. They do not have songs, and their typical vocalizations are limited to grunts, hisses, bill clacks, and similar sounds. Something that's really cool about these guys is that they'll urinate on their legs and feet to cool off on hot days. Their urine is perfectly sterile and helps kill any bacteria or parasites that they may have picked up from walking through carcasses or perching on dead animals. Their bare heads and neck also help keep them from getting bacteria or other parasites, because there are no feathers for parasites to burrow into. This allows the bird to stay healthy while feeding on material that would easily infect other animals. In summary, they could basically eat anthrax or the coronavirus and you could wash your hands with their poop. The biggest threat to vultures is actually poisoning, primarily from toxins or lead in the carcasses they eat. Other hazards are car collisions as they feed on roadkill, and electrocution from collisions with power lines. In summary, turkey vultures are really important to the ecosystem because they eat all that gross, dead, decaying flesh. Thank you so much for joining me today to learn about raptors. I hope you've learned something and come to realize how unique and important these creatures are. Please let us know if you see or hear a raptor around. Definitely keep your eyes out for red-tailed hawks on branches overlooking the road while you're riding in a car. I've seen quite a few next to the roads around camp. And camp has been known to house Cooper's hawks and barred owls. So next time you're at camp, you'll have to keep an eye and ear open.